In both your informative and persuasive speech, you'll be required to do a question-answer session. Here are some guidelines for a successful question-answer session. The first thing, be aware of your posture and your body language. The presentation isn't over until the question-answer session is completed. So this is part of your presentation. So make sure that you maintain a posture of confidence and body language that's appropriate for your speech. Don't do anything that would be distracting while you're being asked questions, such as drinking water or tapping on the table or leaning on the podium. Now, effective eye contact should be maintained with the entire audience when answering a question. Break eye contact with the person who asked the question and finish your answer by looking at a different person. Take a question from the entire audience. It's really easy to look at one side of the audience and get all your questions from them, but do your best to span the room and to take questions from all of them. Now, in my class, I'm going to ask you to clearly, when a person asks you a question, you're going to look at them. Maintain eye contact with them during the entire time that they're asking the question. But as soon as they ask the question, stop eye contact with them and span the room to engage the entire audience in the answer that you're giving them. You're going to repeat and paraphrase all questions. Make sure you heard that word, all questions. Because when I evaluate your question-answer session, I'm looking for, did you paraphrase the question? Once the person asks you the question, you repeat it back to them and look at them. You're going to probably get a head nod that, yes, that was my question. And then you're going to answer by turning and looking at all of the audience. The reason that you paraphrase the question is for two reasons. First, to make sure that the entire audience heard the question. And second, to make sure that you have the right question that the person is trying to ask. Reply simply and directly. Answer the question without going into another speech. I have heard public speakers who take one question and then all of a sudden they've jumped in and they're giving a whole nother speech. Be sure that you simply and directly answer the questions that are asked to you. If you think a question's already been answered in your presentation, perhaps your point wasn't so clear. Don't insult the audience member by saying, I've already answered that in my speech. Simply and directly answer the question again. Another common error I see people do is to look at somebody and say, that's a good question. That makes me kind of wonder if the person that asked the question before had a bad one. So be sure to not say, that's a good question. Keep all of the questions short. Don't allow them to become a speech. Sometimes people like to ask questions in order to give them time on the floor to share their opinions and their ideas. If a question reappears in a different form, do not answer it a second time. Simply tell the person that after the session's over, you can spend some more time talking about that topic. Anticipate before you start your presentation and your question-answer session. Anticipate several major questions and be prepared to direct those questions to them when you prepare your presentation. Now, if you're not prepared for an answer to a question, keep out of trouble. Say, that's too complicated for a brief answer, or that's probably not of interest to everyone here, so let's talk about that later. Or Mr. Smith is our expert on that, and I'll check with him so that I don't give you the wrong information. I will have that information for you by tomorrow. It is very, very important that you do not pretend to have information that you don't. If you do that, at some point, somebody in your audience may have the accurate information and your credibility will be damaged. If you do not know the correct answer, simply tell the person you'll find the answer later for them. Now keep within the timeline of your question-answer session. Gauge the audience's interest level as well. If you can see the audience is not as interested, tell them that you'll end the question-answer session, but you'll remain at the front of the room to answer any questions that people may have later one-on-one. Also, if you're only given 1 minute to 2 minutes or 5 minutes for your question-answer session, be sure that you stay within that time limit. Your first presentation Your informative presentation, you will be given 1 minute for your question and answer session, and your persuasive, you'll be given 2 minutes. So stay within that time period for your question and answer session. You may want to solicit some questions ahead of time, maybe during the break time, so that you'll have a chance to reflect on those questions and the best way to phrase your answers for that particular audience. If there are no questions or too few questions expressed or asked of you, you may want to ask yourself something by saying, you know, if I were thinking about the presentation, I may want to know, and you may ask a question in that manner. The next time we speak, we're going to talk about your public speaking assignments.